Know your gifts. As a young girl, my mother often told me I could accomplish anything I put my mind to. A big dreamer, she enthusiastically encouraged my siblings and me to explore things that interested us and to experiment. My mom's affirmation gave me confidence to try new things and not to be afraid of failure. My dad's mother, Grandma Judy, was always volunteering for good causes. She knitted hundreds of little blankets for children in a Romanian orphanage and other children in need. She routinely sent money, even if just a few dollars a month, to scores of nonprofits, and she helped out at the local community pregnancy center. She loved including her grandkids in her volunteer work. One day, she invited me to help her at the pregnancy center, and she and I spent an afternoon stuffing envelopes for an upcoming fundraiser, the center's annual Walk for Life. With the money raised from the event, the center could buy an ultrasound machine so women in need could see their babies before they were born. Having 5 younger siblings, I had seen my share of ultrasound pictures posted on our refrigerator. Those pictures were always exciting to me, and I could only imagine how exciting they would be to new moms and dads. The pregnancy center encouraged families to raise money in advance by securing sponsors for their walk around the park. Although only 9, I was captivated by the idea that I could actually help mothers and children. All I had to do was ask. I spent a whole month pestering every adult I came in contact with to sponsor me. I also spent hours on the phone calling friends and family. I even cold called people whose names I found in the church directory. I did not know at the time that soliciting was against church policy, but thankfully our church was a generous one, and most people I approached had a soft spot for a 9-year-old passionate about mothers and babies. It felt exhilarating, being able to help others in such a tangible way, even though I was only a kid. I ended up raising more than $3,000. Better still, my dad had promised to match whatever I raised. We went to the walk as a family, and I helped my mom push my baby brother around the park in the stroller. I practically skipped with pride, happy that I was able to help my mom and the center. At the program after the walk, one of the organizers announced the center had raised enough money to buy an ultrasound machine. Then they shared who the top fundraisers were in categories based on age and how much they had each raised. As they moved through each category, I learned that I had outraised the child, teen, and young adult top fundraisers combined. Better still, it had been fun. The walk became a turning point in my young life. I have no idea how much difference I could simply make by recruiting people around me to support the center, and it wasn't that hard to ask once I got started. In the process, I learned that I had a gift for taking the initiative and rallying other people to help. Think back to a moment in your life when you felt most alive in the work you were doing. That experience of aliveness is key to discovering not only your passion, but also your gifts. Maybe you already know the gifts you have, or are working to develop your skills. Or maybe you're still wondering what your particular gifts and talents might be. Start with what brings you life, things you enjoy, and things you're naturally good at. What do people praise you for? What do the people closest to you, the people you trust, see as your strengths? What activity so engrosses you that you lose all sense of time? God gave you strengths for a reason. When you fight for a cause, you put your unique gifts to work for Him and for humanity. You are unrepeatable, both biologically and spiritually. Among the billions of people who inhabit this planet, there is no one exactly like you. Even if you had an identical twin with the same DNA who was raised under the same roof as you each would have different personalities, interests, and gifts. These differences are obvious. Some of us find math easy, others find it difficult. Some of us are extroverted, others introverted. Some of us are long-term planners, and others like to live by the seat of our pants. Is this all random chance? No. God designed us with unique and individual sets of talents and gifts for a reason. They are given to us to be used and developed so we can better serve others. Several years after the Walk for Life, when I was a student at UCLA, I learned another valuable lesson about our individual gifts, specifically about the dangers of comparing gifts. I had gone with some friends to a Bible study held in a top floor apartment near Hollywood. It was upscale without being pretentious, the kind of place in which I imagined a lot of aspiring actors, musicians, and creators lived. Once inside the apartment, I found a place on the couch. An animated 20-something man named Jamil was talking about how hard it was to be a Christian musician in Los Angeles. He was good enough to have once worked on a project with a famous rapper and producer, but his refusal to compromise on the lyrics he wrote had limited his own progress as a performer. He shared how he had watched other rappers he had worked with gain fame and success while his own career seemed to stall. "But God told me it was okay," he said. "God told me, Jamal, you have to stay in your lane. Stop looking at what I'm doing in other people's lives, or what the evil one may be doing in other people's lives. Look at your own life, and what I'm calling you to do. If you start to look over at other people in their lanes, you will crash." Jamil had a gift for music. Despite the temptation to use his gift in a way that compromised his values, he understood that God had given that gift for a purpose, to create music that honored God. Jamil did just that. Since the beginning of time, people have coveted the gifts and possessions of others. In Genesis, we'll learn that brothers Cain and Abel each presented God an offering. Cain presented fruit from the ground, and Abel presented a sheep from his flock. God preferred Abel's gift, and Cain went off sulking. God said to Cain, "Why are you so angry, and why is your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not well, sin is lurking at the door. Its desires for you, but you must master it." Genesis 4:6-7, NRSV. And yet, instead of trusting that if he did his best, God would give him what he needed, Cain killed Abel, in a fit of jealousy. It's no accident that 2 of the 10 Commandments deal with envy. You shall not commit adultery, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife. God told Moses and added, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Exodus 20:14-17, same version. We can admire the gifts and talents of others and look to them for inspiration, but once we begin to covet what they have, we lose our way. Comparing ourselves to others inevitably makes us feel inferior, or, just as bad, brings us to self-satisfied feelings of superiority. Constant comparisons also limit our ability to focus on our own unique talents and gifts, what we can do to serve others, what we are called to do, and how we can grow to become the best people we can be. It can be easy to adopt a scarcity mentality about our own gifts and abilities. We think that if someone else is using their gifts and making an impact, then somehow our gifts and the impact they can make are less valuable. This competitive mindset only cripples us, causing us to perceive others as threats instead of allies. Instead, we should think collaboratively. God created our diversity of talents, abilities, and experiences so that we can serve and work better together. The differences we have with others are by design, not accident. We can appreciate and celebrate the gifts and successes of others, then focus on using the gifts and graces we've been given. Unfortunately, many of the technologies we use and much of the media we consume only breeds comparison and competition. Social media apps are designed to make us seek influence and more popularity with others, and to compare ourselves when we don't get as many likes or shares or comments. Media is full of images of aspirational lifestyles, airbrushed bodies and faces, clothes, vacations, even idealized relationships that can tempt us to envy or compare. It shouldn't surprise us that most social media users feel worse about themselves after using an app, not better. But I'd encourage you not to miss your own life by becoming absorbed in someone else's. God has gifts He has entrusted to you, specifically, and the purpose of those abilities and graces is to use them in service of others. Don't waste your precious time comparing your life to another's. Instead, glean whatever lessons, whatever inspiration you can from others, and then use the gifts and graces that you've been given to serve the world. If Jamil had wasted all his focus and energy on wishing for the success other artists had, instead of developing his own gifts in service of others, he would have wasted his God-given potential. Instead, he chose to be heavily involved in his church, and to excel in his musical abilities in a way that honored God. The solution to envy and comparison is twofold. Focus on what you've set out to do with the talents and abilities God gave you, and then trust that God will help you make the best of the gifts you've been given. We step into our creative power when we acknowledge and embrace the gifts we have been given. Our gifts are the weapons needed to change the world.